Then on Sports Central, we go over a college football game preview and prediction on the 2022 Sun Bowl matchup between the Pitt Panthers and the UCLA Bruins. Both teams have had great seasons getting to this point. Pitt being a team finished out the regular season at 8-4 and one of the top teams in the ACC this season. They're taking on UCLA, one of the top teams in the Pac-12. The Bruins did take a couple of tough losses down the stretch, but they still finished out the regular season at 9-3 and ranked in the top 20. Should make for a good matchup. We'll be over a full game preview and prediction on this matchup here today, starting with their team trends. Pitt beat Miami on the road 42-16 to finish out the regular season, so a dominant win over the Hurricanes, and that kept them out of a bowl game. So Pitt, a great win to finish out the season for them. Finished out at 8-4 with a 4-game winning streak as well. This team was 4-4 heading into November. Things weren't looking good, but Pitt played really well down the stretch. They beat Syracuse, dominant win over Virginia. They beat Duke 20-26. By the way, Duke, actually a good team this season. I mean, that team, they really came around, and they're definitely a surprise team this year, but Duke finished out at 8 wins, so that was an excellent win there over them, and obviously the dominant win over Miami. As for UCLA, they beat Cal on the road 35-28. That was kind of a close game considering Cal was one of the worst teams in the Pac-12 this season, but either way, still a good win. Finished out the regular season at 9-3. And they're ranked number 18 in the college football playoff rankings heading into this matchup. Games be on Friday, December 30th in El Paso, Texas. Kickoff is 2 p.m. Eastern. Spreads going with UCLA by 5.5. Over-under is 53.5. And the FBI is going with the Bruins as well, 54%. So the Bruins are favored by a decent amount in this matchup, which honestly isn't too surprising once you look in depth into both teams. Pitt is a team that is going to be a bit shorthanded in this matchup. Kedon Slovis has entered the transfer portal already, and he is headed to BYU, which may surprise some, definitely surprised me, but he's out of Pitt, so he's not even around for this bowl game, it appears. And they also are without their lead running back, Abonaconda, who's had a huge impact on this team this season, 1,400 yards, 20 touchdowns, so that's going to be obviously a tough blow as well when you don't even have your starting quarterback, and at least you could have your running back, but you don't. He's already declared for the draft. So, yeah, Pitt is going to be a bit shorthanded. They have played better down the stretch in comparison to the Bruins, but, yeah, Pitt is going to be shorthanded for this game. Series history, UCLA leads at 9-5. So we've seen a few matchups between these two teams, but the last one came way back in 1972. Stat comparison, Pitt is 48th in points per game, 36th in points allowed, 71st in passers a game, 51st in rush yards. And then for yards allowed, they're 58th in passing, 7th in rushing. So a strong rush defense here in Pitt, that's their main strength. They only allow 95 rush yards a game. So going up against Zach Charbonnet with UCLA, who's been an outstanding player this season, you're going to have to definitely contain him if the Panthers want any chance of winning this. But offensively, they're a fairly average team statistically. They're averaging 30 points a game. They've been pretty good in the backfield, but obviously you're without Abonaconda. But there is some depth in the backfield. So it's something to keep an eye on. But yeah, Pitt being shorthanded is definitely something to keep in mind when predicting this game. UCLA is 8th in points per game, 93rd in points allowed. So offensively, this is a strong team, but defensively, they have allowed 28 points a game. So they do allow a decent amount of points. They're 34th in passers a game, 4th in rush yards. So all around a strong team offensively. And then for yards allowed, they're 123rd in passing defense, 31st in rushing defense. So rush defense has been a main strength for UCLA, but against the pass has been a big issue. And you're going up against a Pitt team without Kedon Slovis, who really, I mean, he had an okay season, 2,300 yards, 10 touchdowns, over 9 picks. Really nothing too outstanding, though. So, I mean, if he wasn't even that good, I'm not really too concerned about that situation. They don't have an outstanding passer, the Panthers, but, I mean, the rushing defense, that's going to be key for both teams in this matchup. Recent matchups, Pitt, they beat Miami 42-16 on the road, beat Duke 20-26, impressive win there. They also beat Virginia on the road 37-7. They beat number 20 Syracuse 19-9, but did take a loss against North Carolina 24-42. That's when North Carolina was playing really well, and that's the last loss that Pitt took. This team, if you look back into the earlier parts of the season, they did lose to Louisville by a couple of touchdowns, lost to Georgia Tech. That's a game that they should have won. And they also lost to Tennessee, but took it to overtime. So, I mean, if you look back to that Week 2 matchup against Tennessee and knowing where Tennessee ended up, I mean, I'd say that was a super impressive performance there by Pitt. keeping it as close as they did to Tennessee. And yeah, the Vols really came around down the stretch, and they had an outstanding season. So it was impressive for Pitt to make it as close as it was. Key points: Pitt 8-4, starting quarterback Kadon Slow is transferring out. This is a strong team in the backfield, and especially the rush defense. Once again, I mentioned this, Abonaconda, he's declared for the NFL draft, the lead running back on this team, so he's not going to be around. And that's going to be difficult for Pitt not having him around. He's had such a huge impact on this team this season. I mean, for most games, he's averaged like over 120 yards. I mean, he had 320 yards in that game against Virginia Tech back in October. I mean, that just shows how big of an impact player he really is. And so, yeah, it's going to be tough not having him around. And for Pitt, being shorthanded, something to keep an eye on. But for UCLA, offensively, they're definitely one of the best in the country. Dorian Thompson-Robinson, he's an experienced quarterback that is, extremely talented. He's put up 2,800 yards on the season, 25 touchdowns, over 7 interceptions. So, I mean, he hasn't really broken out, but he's been a consistent and reliable quarterback, that's for sure. And then Zach Charbonnet, of course, the lead running back. He is an outstanding rusher, over 1,300 yards and 14 touchdowns on the year. Keep an eye on him as well. Defensively, UCLA does tend to allow a lot of points. So for Pitt, I think Pitt's able to score a few touchdowns here, but for UCLA in this offense, I mean, for Pitt, it's just going to be a matter of how effectively are they going to be able to stop this brutal UCLA offense. They're really talented across the board, and they know how to score points. They average nearly 40 points a game. With that said, let's get the prediction here for Pitt and UCLA coming up here in the Sun Bowl. This one, I'm going to go with the Bruins here. 35-24 is my predicted final score. So I think Pitt, in the end, I feel like being shorthanded, it's going to be tough for Pitt to score a whole lot of points. And you're going up against the UCLA team that knows how to score points. And they've got their players, DTR and Charbonnet. I think they both lead the way, and UCLA finds a way to win this one 35-24. I do think Pitt's able to score a few touchdowns. As I just mentioned, I mean, I think they get up to 24, but in the end, this defense is going to need to play a really strong game here if they want any chance of winning it. And in the end, I do think UCLA is able to score a couple of touchdowns. Maybe they get a defensive touchdown as well, and they get the win 35-24. So I'll say 55% towards UCLA. Honestly, you can make that 60%. I am fairly confident that the Bruins win here. I mean, it's tough because, I mean, Pitt also played better down the stretch. So you don't know how UCLA is going to come out in this game. But, I mean, even in both losses, they put up a tough fight against USC, and they had a tough loss against Arizona. So, I mean, yeah, both games were close, but they have been impressive at multiple points this season. And UCLA, in the end, we see the best of this team come out. And they win this one 35-24. So I've got the over, and I've also got the Bruins covering the spread in the end. But let me know your thoughts in the comments below on this matchup, and I appreciate you guys watching as always. Stay tuned for more from All Sports Central. Catch you on the next one.